by, explained by the economy theorist Adam Smith, right? Free market. Yeah. That was the base of capitalism. And another big idea was developed by Karl Marx. That was Marxism. So Marxism is become the base of modern socialist country, communist country, right? To talk about big difference between capitalism, socialism, or communism is the philosophical base is totally different from each other. Okay, so today we're gonna talk about the base philosophical idea that supports each capitalism and Marxism. Okay. Okay, here, when we study philosophy or politics, we have to know the difference. What is materialism? What is idealism? Okay, brief explanation. Materialism is matter, things that you can touch, the world you can see. That is the essence, base of the world. Like, not visible things, like something you don't see, like, atoms, right? Particle. When we talk about physics, that matter is base of the world, foundation of the world. So, all phenomena, things that happens in real world, and also the conscious, the mind, thinking, that is coming from the material. Simple explanation. I am alive. I have body. My body is composed of many different organs, right? Skin, bone, organs inside my bodies, right? Livers, hearts, stomachs. That is material, right? So my mind is also coming from the work of the brain. Brain is material, right? So your mind, your thinking, your conscience is produced by the working of your brain. That is materialism. Makes sense, right? And idealism. Who has the biggest idealism supported in philosophical history? Who has the big idea about idealism? Who is it? Plato, right? Plato. In urbanization, as people moved from the rural area to cities in search of jobs, right? This led to growth of industrial cities such as England, Manchester. Manchester was historically, there were many manufacturers. Okay, we know Manchester United, the soccer team. We only know that, but in history, Manchester was big city of manufacturers. The Birmingham too, and Liverpool too. Yes. So Lowell and New York, same. Yes. big cities. So, however, rapid urbanization also result in what? Too many people live in packed area, right? So poor living condition and poor health issues as cities were unprepared to accommodate, to hold that population. Also, there was no regulation. Even though there were government, they didn't have regulation. Also, that is a bad aspect of industrial revolution. So number 4, we're gonna see transportation revolution. What is the big change? Transport, right? Before that, we used horse, cows, donkeys, right? But since steam engine invented, people can use train powered by steam engine. So development of railroad, steamships revolutionized transportation, reducing the cost and time to move people and products. So the extension of railways connected cities, towns, ports that facilitating trade and the movement of raw material. Raw material is like the coal, the oils, right? You just excavate, digging. That is raw material, unprocessed material. That is raw material. So finished goods over long distance. And then there are another change is number 5, labor changes. So the shift to factory work meant a move from skilled artisanal labor to unskilled labor, as machine could now do much of the work. Machine replaces human skills, right? Yeah, that is also happened in that time. So this led to the rise of the large industrial working class. So machinery conditions were often harsh. A factory, harsh with long hours, low wages, and unsafe environment. Sometimes children labor was very, very common. They didn't go to school. They just worked in factory. In England, in industrial revolution time. So living condition, the working class family often lived in crowded, unsanitary, dirty conditions with little access to clean water or health services. So this led to spread of what? Diseases and cholera, tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is like 결핵. So that was also another big problem of industrial movement, the revolution. Then the social reforms. The harsh condition of industrial labor eventually led to the rise of labor union. People try to think, hey, we are the only ones sacrificed, right? So let's get together, let's make union. With one voice, it's not working. Voice of many people, they might work. to change the circumstances, environment. The system, right? So that is a big change too. And then 7, global impact. In industrial revolution had profound impact on global trade, right? Colonizations. Okay. Colonizations. Since, let's say, since England has the most advanced country economy in that time, industrial revolution, they can make many goods, many products, but the market is limited in England, right? So they want to sell their product to where? India, China, any other countries, right? So in history, when they ask for trade to Eastern Asian countries like China, Korea, Japan, they don't send the economists. They send what? Worship too. If you don't want to trade, I want to attack you guys. That is also, another history of the global impact. So the colony was limited, right? So sometimes the advanced country in Europe, they fought each other. Korea is mine. For the Korean, Russia and Japan fought together to acquire Korea, right? And then also many same history in China too, and Vietnam, any other Asian countries. Also, African country, right? Yeah. So sometimes they fought each other between England and France and Germany, Netherlands. They fought each other to get more colonies. Yeah. Eventually, that led to what? World War I. Yeah. World War I. Still affecting to the result of World War II too. So there was many huge impact to the world. And then let's see number 8, intellectual and political impacts. So economic theories, the rise of industrial capitalism led to development of economic theory, such as what? Laissez-faire capitalism. Who said this one? Adam Smith. Free market. Government, hey, you guys don't get involved in free market. Let's just learn by themselves. That is Adam Smith's idea, right? And who advocate minimal government interference in business. And in other hands, who has opinion about economy? That is socialism and communism too. Because problem of industrial revolution, people try to think in different way in economical system. Adam Smith think, okay, free market is a good way to make everybody happy. No. Karl Marx, no, that is not a good idea. Socialism, communism is the way to make people happy. So that these are all ideas are result of industrial revolution. We have to talk about this to go over next chapter, okay? So socialism, communism in response to inequality, right? Everybody is not, some people have, too much money. Yeah. Working class, they only work in a factory with low wages. So, and the exploitation of workers. So the thinkers such as Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, critiqued capitalism and proposed alternatives like communism. So which called abolition of private property, classless society. Idea was good, but that never happened in reality. What if I say, hey guys, you don't get your personal property. Property is communal. Everybody has ownership. Is it a good idea? No. Yeah. So that was the good result and bad result of industrial revolution. So there was also a big problem of industrial revolution. Then some people try to think there might be another way, not free market, not socialism. Maybe let's try different. First, the idea was developed in Northern Europeans, like German. You guys have heard of social democracy. It is combined of socialism and democracy. Okay, the main idea of social democracy is political, social, economical policy, philosophy, right? They're looking for, they try to make social justice. That includes everything, social justice. No difference between woman and man, right? No difference between age, no difference between race, right? Everybody is equal. Everybody has equal opportunity to do anything, right? That is a social justice. So the big change was made, but they don't want to change the whole system. They change little by little, okay? In capitalism framework. They don't want to change to socialism or communism framework, okay? They want to stay in capitalism framework, okay? But there are still many problems in capitalism. So some people try to think differently. They adopt good idea from socialism and they want to keep the capitalism too. That is socialism, democracy. Understand? What do you think? Is it kind of good idea? No? you don't know? Okay. So, okay. So they advocate the balance between free market, right? They keep free market too. And then also government intervention. Okay, people do free market, but the government, we're gonna watch more carefully if they're inequality, right? That is, so that means a big government. Government try to control more. Yeah. Free market means less government control. but they adopt the idea of free market, but not less control, more control on free market. That is socialism, socialist democracy. So that is focused on more social inequality. Welfare state. Welfare state means 복지국가. Okay, I translated in Chinese too. So they pursue reduce inequality, make more welfare state. That is their goal. That is their vision. So let's see history of social democracy.
The Academy for Social Democracy at the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung outlines the history of social democracy. Congratulations. On the 23rd of May 2013, the SPD, the Social Democratic Party of Germany, celebrated its 150th birthday. The Academy for Social Democracy.
Social Democracy Party, the first political party in Germany.
Congratulations. On the 23rd of May 2013, the SPD, the Social Democratic Party of Germany, celebrated its 150th birthday. But how did the history of social democracy start? It's the mid-19th century, the age of the Industrial Revolution. Among the workers, there is grinding poverty, 14-hour days, child labour, appalling living conditions, and no form of social protection are the norm. There's also political oppression by an authoritarian and undemocratic state. The revolution of 1848 ends in failure. The hope of political freedom and an improvement in living conditions are not fulfilled. But the political workers' movement holds fast to its basic principles of liberty, justice, and solidarity. The pioneers of social democracy are convinced only in a democracy can social distress and dependency be overcome. Convinced that a change in society can only be achieved together, the working class begins to organize. On the 23rd of May 1863, the General German Workers' Association, the ADAV, is founded, the first social democratic party in Germany. Over the next 150 years, the Social Democrats had to endure a great deal. They were banned in the German Empire, persecuted and murdered under the National Socialists, and in 1946, in the Soviet zone, were forced to merge with the KPD, the German Communist Party. But the Social Democrats have always defended their ideals. This was particularly clear in 1933. The SPD voted against, in spite of the risk of death, and as the only party to do so, the so-called Enabling Act of the National Socialists. This law overruled the Weimar Constitution and made it easier for the National Socialists to unleash their terror. The chairman of the SPD at the time, Otto Wels, said that although their freedom and their lives might be taken away, nothing could take away their honour. The principles that the Social Democrats stood up for often seemed utopian, but frequently became a reality. For example, as early as 1875, the Social Democrats, in their Gotha program, called for universal suffrage. In 1919, all men and women over the age of 20 were finally allowed to vote. An 8-hour working day was called for in the Airport program in 1891. 27 years later, this in fact became a reality for the first time. Or the right of women to work. As early as 1921, this was advocated by the SPD in their Görlitz program. From 1977, women finally no longer needed consent from their husbands to take up a profession. History has thus shown that it's worth holding on to utopian ideals and fighting for them. And there there are still things to be done, such as achieving real equality between men and women, or globalization with solidarity, or overcoming social divisions. Achieving social democracy takes work, but it's worth it. More information and offerings concerning the history of social democracy at www.
Okay, first, the Social Democratic Party was invented in Germany. They advocate to reduce inequality and try to pursue a welfare state. Okay, that was the main idea of it. They did study earlier, 18th century, right? It has long history of social democrat. But still, I want to show you one more video of this one. So the countries, the Nordic country like Sweden, Finland, Norway, Iceland, those countries adopting a social democracy. Okay, I'm not saying these systems are perfect. Okay, there's no problem. I'm not saying that. They have also problem with it, social problem. Any other problem exists in that country, that system too. But so far, they do well than other countries. They will do than only capitalism system or socialism system or communist system. They do better. They serve better for the people in any other country. That is, the system they have. Let's see.
If you look at almost any list measuring human development around the world, you can be sure about one thing, that these 5 countries will be somewhere in the top 10, whether it's the stake of democracy.
Yeah, Norway, Sweden, Finland, also Denmark too. Yeah.
Human rights, lack of corruption.
Okay, any kind of index, they are all highly ranked. Yeah. These countries, no corruption, no stealing.
진짜죠?
Less than any other country, less than England, less than France, less than US.
As between citizens, social cohesion, gender equality, human development index, happiness index, it's always the same. Looking at those lists, Scandinavia just seems to be best at, well, everything. It looks like these few countries somehow found a recipe for success, a unique combination of economic policies and social values that became known as the Nordic model. But what is the Nordic model exactly, and why is it so successful? Is the reputation of the Scandinavian countries deserved? And if it is, then why don't we replicate their model everywhere? This is the secret of Scandinavian success, the Nordic model. The answer to all of this is a little complicated, but the best way to start might be at a time when Scandinavia was not doing so well, and when it was going through one of its biggest crises and facing a number of pretty severe economic and political challenges in the interwar period of the 1930s. Back then, the region was, like most of the world, badly affected by the Great Depression, the worst economic crisis of the 20th.
Okay, the Great Depression, and that started in U.S., right, in history. That affected the world. That was the bad result of capitalism, okay? Oh.
and the Nordic countries were hit pretty hard. The unemployment was extremely high, almost at 40% in Denmark. Businesses
40%
were bankrupting,
unemployment.
and even independent farmers, who made up a backbone of the economy, were struggling just to get by. And just as in other parts of Europe, the economic hardship was fueling political radicalism and populism, as extremists on both sides of the spectrum were becoming more popular. Scandinavian communists were trying to overthrow the system through class warfare, creating rifts in the society and turning the lower classes against the elites, while fascists were attacking the nature of democracy itself, presenting it as ineffective and weak. To get through the crisis, the Nordic countries had to respond in a way that would address both the economic crisis and the political challenges. And the solutions that all of them chose defined what the Nordic model is, and what Scandinavia would have looked like in the following decades. First, the Nordic countries decided that the way to keep the society together in the times of the crisis is through a massive state spending and government-funded programs to help the people affected by the economic hardships.
Yeah, they are focusing more on welfare state. There is a key
These
concept.
existing measures like unemployment benefits and old age pensions were massively expanded, aiming to provide at least some means for people who were out of job or too old to get one. And they were complemented by
Still, there's in the U.S. some people they didn't have worker, right? Workers insurance. So some small business, the owner don't offer.
of other welfare measures aimed at improving the lives of the lower classes, subsidies for decent public housing, or benefits for families with children. This is when the modern welfare state was born and became a first key part of the Nordic model. In the following decades, the Nordic countries continued to expand on those core programs established in the 1930s, but the basic idea is still the same. To keep the society together and to keep different classes from clashing, you need to help the lower classes that need.
Okay, if they don't, reduce the class difference, so there should be always conflict, right? There should be always problem in any society. The working class work hard, they don't get, the benefits, or benefit only takes, just 1 or 2% of the population, right? So that was unfair. Someday there gonna be problem in the whole economy of the country. So they change the way they run.
In the most, and you need to integrate them into the society rather than to exclude them. And the idea is that even though this can cost a lot of money, it's still worth it. Because if you don't help them, the poverty, homelessness, and unemployment will end up costing you even more. That's why the.
You understand, right? Okay, I have my mother, she's late 80s, okay? Let's say government cuts the cost of her medical. She is now healthy, okay? Just government every month give her small money to keep her health good, right? But let's say when the government cuts the supporting of my mother, but she only, depend on her own economy, right? Then someday she get very sick, and she, stay in hospital many days, right? The cost of her stay in many days is more cost than giving her little money in every month. That is what this program says.
The state in Scandinavia casts a wide social safety net, making sure that even when you lose your job, you won't hit rock bottom. and the state is actively trying to help you to get back on your feet and back into the work.
Yes, you lose your job, the government, the state try to help you get new job. For new job, you need any kind of different skill. Okay, I'm gonna educate you to get new skill. That costs less money than producing many homeless on the street. Eventually, in LA, there are many homeless living in LA. I live right next to the big church. In sidewalk of big church, there are whole tent of homeless. Every day police comes. Every day they come, take all trashes and debris, and the next day they build new tent. That costs more money. Yeah. Than supporting employees for them to get educated and get new job.
As fast as you can, because as opposed to what many people might think, the point of the Scandinavian welfare state is not to keep people hooked on the state benefits forever, but rather the opposite. Scandinavian countries are surprisingly strict and generous at the same time. People who are left without a job are given generous unemployment benefits, but only as long as they are actively seeking work. And following the same pragmatic logic, the Scandinavian welfare
That's a good idea, right? I'm still trying to get the job. As long as they try to get a new job, not just sitting at your home. They don't give you unemployment benefit, right? If you actively try to get a new job, they give you financial support. That's a good idea too.
puts a lot of effort into trying to elevate the poor to become the middle class. The idea is the same. A strong middle class and economically equal society is good for social cohesion, while having a lot of very poor people is both expensive and creates a divided society. That's why the Nordic education, healthcare, and social services are free or almost free for everyone, and focus, at least in theory, on making sure that everyone has a...
Yeah, I have a friend who lived in Germany. No college, no fee for college in Germany. No fee for medical.
Or less equal opportunity to build a solid career and have a decent quality of life. The downside of this is that the welfare state doesn't come free, and the Nordic countries have famously high taxes. In Denmark, the average person pays 45% of their income on taxes, compared to 22% in the United States and 24% in the UK.
See, the Nordic country average tax for your income is 45%.
불만이 없어요?
I don't think so.
그래.
And United States, 22%.
Taxes in Scandinavia are not just a way to provide the state with enough money to pay for everything, but they also serve as a tool for redistributing wealth and helping to keep...
Not only they do a high tax, or also they try to redistribute the wealth. That is also important.
Income inequality low. Basically, it's harder to become really wealthy, and it's also harder to become extremely poor. But it's relative.
Yes, it says it is really hard to become really rich. Also, in another way, it is really hard, extremely poor. There's no poor, no rich.
Easy to stay somewhere in the middle. When this concept was first formed in the 1930s, in Sweden it was called folkhemmet. people's home, implying that the state is not just a detached bureaucratic body, but rather a home or a family for its people. In this concept, all citizens are part of this family, and as such, everyone needs to be treated fairly and equally, and even more importantly, the common good of everyone, of the family as a whole, is what really matters, and it is more important than the good of the individual. This is somewhere in the middle between the super individualistic model in the United States, where the state is there only to provide the basic minimum and everyone should rely on themselves, and the totalitarian communist model in the Soviet Union, where
Yes, what he's saying is it is between the system between the US and Russia.
rights of the individual were basically non-existent. That's why the Scandinavian model became famous during the Cold War in the English-speaking world as the middle way. Second part of the Nordic model, which was also born in the 1930s, is what became known as the Great Compromise. In Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, unions of employees and unions of employers agreed that in order to prevent a conflict between different classes, they must find a compromise that would make everyone happy. And so, through different agreements, employers in all the Nordic countries agreed to guarantee decent wages, safe working conditions, and a maximum of 10 working hours per day for everyone, while the employees agreed not to protest and strike, as long as their employers kept their word. This unique model of cooperation between workers and business owners remains until today.
Still nowadays, when you see news, like in France, England, there are still, striking of laborers, right? But you don't see striking in Nordic countries.
주로 뭐예요? 무슨 산업이에요? 그쪽 나라들은 무슨 산업이 유리해?
Many different, the oil industry too. Norway is oil industry, big industry.
And many of the working conditions are negotiated directly
Also
without
high-tech
the
too.
intervention of the state. That's why, for example,
Okay, I think I know Denmark, Belgium. Okay, you guys know the Samsung, right? Samsung make what is it? The computer chips, right? Okay, they have to borrow the technique system. Okay, but the system, a factory system that makes computer chip, the Samsung didn't make it. Though they cannot make the factory to make the computer chip. The system should be developed. That's the only country, United States and Belgium, that makes the factory system to make the computer chips. They have high-tech over there too. So Samsung pays a lot of royalty to the high-tech company in Belgium.
Nordic countries don't actually have a national minimum wages that would be mandated by the government. At the same time, a different compromise was reached in politics. In most Nordic countries, social democratic parties have dominated politics since the 1930s, but they formed a consensus with other parties, like liberals, conservatives, and farmers, not just to push through the necessary reform.
Okay, unlike communist, socialist country, there are only one political parties, right? But a socialist democracy, there are many different parties. They compete each other. Yeah. Labor Party, Conservative Party, Liberal Party. Yeah, I think that's good way. By election, they change, right? The government. Okay, this time, who wanna run the government? Okay, let's vote. Yeah.
but also to show that democracy still works and that compromise in politics is possible. But there is one more aspect that makes the Nordic model possible in the first place, and which also explains why it doesn't work anywhere else. This often overlooked aspect are the unique cultural values and social characteristics which can be summarized as social trust. They
Yeah, I didn't know that. Why? Why only Nordic country do run their system very, very well? That has foundation of cultural, historical background. Okay, that is, the guy says, social trust is kind of based on their cultural background. Why? Okay, let's see. It makes
That's
sense.
the real Nordic goal. And they are what really makes Scandinavia stand out. The thing is that if you took any given country and tried to introduce the Nordic model, redistribute the wealth through really high taxes to pay for free state-provided services for everyone, chances are that it wouldn't really work. People wouldn't want to give up the benefits of their hard work through high taxes, and they wouldn't trust that the state is competent enough to redistribute them. But Scandinavians are willing to take part and willing to share, not just because they have to, but because they trust that it's the best thing to do.
I love to pay my taxes.
Yeah, I like paying taxes.
Det är jättebra att betala skatt.
Scandinavians just trust both each other and their governments a lot more than anyone else. And that's the reason why they're willing to give up their wealth and support the welfare state. And the crazy thing is that although the welfare state was born in the 1930s, this high level of trust has been in Scandinavia way before that. According to Andreas Berg, who researches this topic in Sweden, Swedes have had higher levels of trust in each other and their state way back in the 19th century, and possibly even before that. Which means that the high level of trust is not an outcome of the welfare politics, the culture of compromise, or the fair legal system. It's what made it possible in the first place. And that's why without this trust, the Nordic model just won't work somewhere else. But as for why Scandinavia
Okay, this is, I think this one is important
legal
to
system,
remember.
it's what made it
Okay. Trust between people and government makes welfare state, right? But only welfare state cannot make the trust. It works only one way. When people have trust each other between citizens and then also government, then they can make welfare state. That is, good spirit. Do you guys trust Trump? you trust Biden? You trust Harry? I don't trust nobody.
No one?
possible in the first place. And that's why without this trust, the Nordic model just won't work somewhere else. But as for why Scandinavians trust people so much, that's a more difficult question to answer. Some historians point to the influence of Lutheranism, a Protestant branch of Christianity. If you look at almost any list
sorry.
measured the world, it's marked by much less violence and internal conflict. Branch of Christianity, which was historically the state.
There's also huge reason why they have trust. It is religious. The northern country has, mostly in the United States, Christian is, the Methodist church is majority. In Korea, Christian church, what is majority? Presbyterian, right? But in northern country, the most major Christian is Lutheran. That's what he's saying.
If you look at almost any list measuring,
Right here.
some historians point to the influence of Luther,
Martin Luther.
a Protestant branch of Christianity which was historically the state religion in Scandinavia, and which has equality and egalitarian society as one of its core values. Others argue that it's the
Lutheran has value of equality.
and point to a theory that people from colder climates generally have higher level.
Also, weather in cold area. Your only neighbor lives far away, right? You travel on the way and then you get lost. So you miss somebody, right? What do you have to do? You have to first trust somebody who live in there, right? They have knowledge about that area, right? So you have to have trust. Then you can be saved when you're lost on the way to travel to a different area. That is cultural background of trust. I think that's
Of social trust, because they had to historically rely on each other and their close neighbors for survival. Another factor might be that the Nordic countries have experienced a lot more internal and external stability. The last time Sweden was at war was in 1814, and the last time a leading political figure was killed in Denmark was in 1286. And while the history of the Nordic countries is obviously not entirely peaceful, compared to the rest of the world, it's marked by much less violence and internal conflict. And finally, there is the geography. Historically, the Scandinavian states have had large territories with long distances between settlements, which made it difficult for the Nordic kings and nobles to exercise strict control over their population. And this meant that the ruling class had to actually try to provide services for their citizens if they wanted to control their land, rather than just collect taxes. In other words, even back then, there was an expectation that those who rule the country should be actually doing something useful for their people. And this
okay. Historically, Northern country, the kings, they didn't rule the country state directly because the weather, cold weather, snowy weather, right? So they cannot travel easily, right? So they send official far away. So when they didn't have trust each other, the system is collapsing, right? Okay, I'm gonna send my official to some city, some town. I give him trust. Also, he also has trust. The king support him, right? Then he can also try to build. He just to deliver the rule and policies, any government order to practice in that area, right? So that is also based on trust. Yeah. So also he also practice, the officials practice the trust for the people. That is also political system historically. Yeah, they have that kind of.
limited control also enabled the rise of a class of independent farmers, which became the foundation of the future strong middle class, the backbone of the Scandinavian societies until today, and a big factor leading to a higher social trust between people. It's difficult to pinpoint one specific reason, and most likely it was a combination of all of them. But the bottom line is that the reasons which made the Nordic model possible date way back into history. And that means that the birth of the Nordic model is less about policy decisions and more about the unique combination of factors that have shaped the Scandinavian societies for hundreds of years. And that's why it's almost impossible to recreate the Nordic model somewhere else. Because while you can replicate some of the policies, without the underlying factors, it's not going to work, or at least not as well. Obviously, the Scandinavian countries are not perfect. They definitely have their flaws, and they're dealing with their own challenges as well. But the fact is that their model has worked, and while we don't know whether their model will survive in the future or not, it has been one of the biggest success stories.
Yeah. For making welfare state, only, when you have money, it doesn't make you welfare state. Yeah. To make this, we have to have social trust in each other. Okay, government works for citizen. Okay, citizen work for my self realization, right? I want my dream too, right? I want my vision to come true someday. Also, they